In Seoul, power doesn't announce itself. It arrives in the silence between words. In the way someone holds a room without speaking. In the quality of a suit that costs more than most people earn in a year, worn like it means nothing at all. I learned this the hard way. On a Tuesday evening when the rain turned the city into sheets of glass and reflection, I made a decision that should have been simple. Terminate an employee. Standard procedure. A signature on a form, a severance package, a polite goodbye. What I didn't know was that the man I was firing didn't work for me. I worked in his world. And I had just made myself visible. My name is Maya Chen, and 6 months ago, I became the youngest director of operations at Hanseong Capital, one of Seoul's most prestigious private equity firms. 28 years old, Stanford MBA, fluent in 3 languages, and the only black woman in executive leadership. I fought for that position. Every meeting where I was the only woman. Every client who asked to speak to someone more senior. Every assumption that I was in the room to take notes rather than make decisions. So when I finally earned that corner office on the 43rd floor, I took my role seriously. Too seriously, as it turned out. Hanseong Capital occupied 12 floors of the Gangnam Finance Tower. Glass, steel, marble, the architecture of wealth. Our offices looked out over Seoul's skyline, a view that reminded you every day what success looked like. Everything was designed to project control, stability, and power. Which is why the janitor bothered me. His name was listed as Minho on the facility's roster. Early 30s, hired 8 months ago through an outside contractor. He worked the evening shift, arriving after most employees left, cleaning the executive floors between 7 p.m. and midnight. I noticed him because he didn't fit. The other cleaning staff moved through the offices with practiced efficiency, headphones in, barely making eye contact. They were invisible by design, part of the building's infrastructure. But Minho was different. He moved through our space like he was reading it. Observing. His cleaning was impeccable, better than anyone else on the staff, but I'd catch him pausing at office doors, looking at the nameplates. Standing in the conference room after hours, staring at the city lights through floor-to-ceiling windows like he was calculating something. And the way he looked at people. Not subservient. Not deferential. Assessing. I mentioned it to HR twice. They said he'd passed all background checks. No criminal record, good references from previous positions. I let it go. Until the night I stayed late working on the Taejun acquisition and found him in my office. It was past 9 p.m. Most of the floor was empty except for a few associates grinding through due diligence in the war room. I'd taken off my heels, working in stockings, spreadsheets open across 3 monitors. I went to the break room for coffee and when I returned, he was there. Standing at my desk. Not cleaning. Just standing there, looking at the documents I'd left open. The Taejun files. Confidential murder details worth $300 million. What are you doing? He turned, and for just a moment, I saw something in his expression that made my breath catch. Not surprise. Not guilt. Recognition. Like he'd been waiting for this. Cleaning, he said in Korean, his voice low and measured. He gestured to the trash bin he'd already emptied. You were looking at my desk. I was looking at the city. He nodded toward the window behind my desk. The view is better from this office. His Korean was too refined. The accent was Seoul, but educated. Upper class. Not the dialect you'd expect from someone working a night cleaning shift. Those are confidential documents, I said, moving to close my laptop. You need to leave. He didn't move immediately. Instead, he looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Not threatening. But not apologetic either. Of course, he said finally. I apologize for the intrusion. He left, taking his cleaning cart with him. I stood there for 10 minutes, heart racing, trying to figure out why a simple interaction felt so unsettling. The next morning, I filed a termination request with HR. The decision felt justified. He'd violated confidentiality protocols by being in my office when I wasn't present. Security risk. Liability issue. Simple decision. What makes this moment significant is not what I knew. It's what I didn't know. The termination meeting was scheduled for 5 p.m. on Thursday. HR protocol required a witness, so I had our head of security, James Park, sit in. The facility's contractor sent a representative. Standard procedure for a dismissal. Minho arrived exactly on time. He wore the same Navy work uniform he always wore, but somehow on him it looked different. Tailored. Like even in this situation, he was in control of how he presented himself. Mr. Khan, I began, keeping my voice professional. We've asked you here to discuss a termination of your employment contract. He sat across from me, completely calm. His hands rested on his thighs, relaxed. Most people in termination meetings showed some emotion, anger, fear, defensiveness. He showed nothing. On Tuesday evening, I continued, you were found in my office reviewing confidential documents without authorization. This represents a serious breach of our security protocols. I see, he said quietly. We're prepared to offer you 2 weeks severance, which is generous given the circumstances. Your last day will be today. The contractor will have your final payment processed within. Miss Chen, he interrupted gently. Not rudely. Just a quiet statement that he had something to say. I paused. Yes? May I ask you something? I glanced at James, who shrugged slightly. Go ahead. Do you know who owns Hanseong Capital? The question caught me off guard. It's a privately held company. Multiple investors. Do you know their names? That's not relevant to this meeting. He smiled then. Not mocking. Something sadder. Almost regretful. You're right, he said. It's not relevant. He stood, buttoning his work uniform jacket with careful precision. Thank you for your time, Miss Chen. The severance won't be necessary. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Be careful, he said, looking back at me. Seoul is complicated. Things are not always what they appear. Then he was gone. James looked at me. That was weird. Yeah, I said, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just made a terrible mistake. Here's why this decision mattered. Within hours, everything changed. The first sign came that evening. I was preparing to leave when my phone rang. Private number. Maya Chen. I answered professionally. Miss Chen. The voice was male, older, speaking English with a Korean accent. My name is Lee Sang-woo. I'm calling on behalf of the ownership group of Hanseong Capital. My pulse quickened. In 2 years with the company, I'd never received a direct call from ownership. Yes, sir. How can I help you? There's been a situation regarding a personnel decision you made today. We need you to reverse it immediately. I sat back down at my desk. I'm sorry, I don't understand. Are you referring to the janitor termination? I'm referring to Kong Minho, yes. Sir, with respect, he violated confidentiality protocols. It's a clear security risk. There was a long pause. When he spoke again, his voice was colder. Miss Chen, I'm going to say this once. Reinstate him. Tonight. With a formal apology. I don't think you understand the situation. No, he interrupted. You don't understand the situation. And if you want to keep your position at this firm, you'll do exactly as I've instructed. The line went dead. I sat there, phone in hand, trying to process what just happened. A member of ownership was demanding I reinstate a janitor? It made no sense. Unless he wasn't just a janitor. I opened my laptop and started digging. Really digging this time. Beyond the standard HR background check. Kong Minho. 32 years old. Degree in business from Seoul National University. After that, his employment history became vague. Private consulting. Independent contractor. Nothing concrete. Then I found something. A society page photo from 3 years ago. A charity gala for a children's hospital. In the background, barely visible, was Minho. Not in a work uniform. In a Tom Ford tuxedo, standing next to one of Korea's most prominent businessmen. The caption mentioned influential private investors and business leaders. My hand started shaking. I did a reverse image search. More photos. Always in the background. Always perfectly dressed. Always next to powerful people. And then I found the connection. Hanseong Capital's ownership structure ran through a network of shell companies and private holdings. It took me 2 hours to trace it, but I finally found the name at the center of everything. Kong Holdings. Minho wasn't just connected to powerful people. He was one of them. What makes this revelation unsettling is not just that I was wrong. It's that he'd been there for 8 months, cleaning offices, invisible, watching everything. The question was why. I needed answers. I found his address in the HR files. An apartment in Seongsu-dong, one of Seoul's quietly expensive neighborhoods. The kind of place where old money lived without advertising it. The building had a doorman. Of course it did. I need to speak with Kong Minho, I said. It's urgent. The doorman looked at me carefully. Does Mr. Kong expect you? Mr. Kong. Not the deference you give a janitor. No, but tell him Maya Chen from Hanseong Capital is here. He'll understand. The doorman made a call. Spoke quietly. Hung up. Penthouse level. He'll meet you. The elevator opened directly into a private foyer. Minimalist. Expensive. A single painting on the wall that looked like an original Li Yufan. The kind of piece that sells for millions. The door opened before I could knock. He stood there, no longer in a work uniform. Black cashmere sweater, tailored trousers, barefoot. His hair was styled differently, pushed back. He looked like what he actually was. Someone who owned things. Miss Chen, he said quietly. I wondered if you'd figure it out. Why? I demanded. Why were you pretending to be a janitor at your own company? He stepped aside, gesturing for me to enter. Because I wanted to understand what I actually owned. The apartment was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River. Modern furniture, perfectly curated art, the smell of expensive tea brewing in a minimalist kitchen. Hanseong Capital has been underperforming, he continued, pouring tea into 2 cups without asking if I wanted any. I acquire companies, Miss Chen. I fix them. I make them profitable. But I can't fix what I don't understand. So you went undercover as cleaning staff? I went where no one would see me. He handed me a cup. People perform differently when they think no one important is watching. I learned more in 8 months cleaning offices than I learned in 2 years of financial reports. I set the tea down without drinking. You let me fire you. I allowed you to do your job. His expression softened slightly. You saw something wrong and you addressed it. That's good management. Then why did ownership call me demanding I reinstate you? Because they don't know who I am either. He smiled faintly. Kong Holdings is structured through enough layers that even the senior partners at Hanseong don't know my identity. They were told to hire a cleaning contractor 8 months ago. They were told never to terminate anyone from that contractor without approval. They followed instructions without knowing why. The real tension wasn't danger. It was the realization that I'd been working in a building where nothing was what it seemed. What happens now? I asked. He walked to the window, looking out at the city lights reflecting on the river. Now, he said quietly, you have a choice. He turned back to face me, and in that moment, the atmosphere shifted. This wasn't an executive talking to an employee. This was something else. Something more complicated. I've been watching you, Miss Chen. Not just your work. The way you handle pressure. The way you think. The way you protect what you believe is right, even when it costs you. I fired you because you were a security risk. You fired me because you thought I was a threat to your authority. His voice was gentle, not accusatory. And you were right. I am a threat. Just not in the way you thought. He moved closer, and I became acutely aware that we were alone. That no one knew I was here. That this man controlled more power than I'd imagined. But I wasn't afraid. Which was perhaps the strangest part. Here's your choice, he continued. You can go back tomorrow. File a complaint. Tell HR that you've discovered the ownership structure. Force transparency. Burn down everything I built to understand this company. Or you can help me finish what I started. He paused. I need someone inside Hanseong who knows the truth. Someone smart enough to see patterns. Someone who can't be bought or intimidated. Someone who does the right thing even when it's difficult. You want me to spy for you? I want you to do exactly what you've been doing. His eyes held mine. Manage well. Make good decisions. Protect the company. But now you'll understand the full picture. And when something needs my attention, you'll know how to reach me. This is where perception changes. Because the man standing in front of me wasn't asking me to do anything illegal. He was asking me to be excellent at my job while understanding that excellence served a larger purpose. Why me? I asked. Because you saw me. His answer was simple, direct. Everyone else looked through me. Invisible labor. Forgettable. But you paid attention. You noticed when something didn't fit. That kind of awareness is rare. I could still report this. You could. He didn't seem concerned. But you won't. You sound very certain. Because you're not motivated by scandal. You're motivated by excellence. He moved back to the window. Working with me, you'll have resources other directors don't have. Information. Access. Protection. Protection from what? He was quiet for a long moment. Seoul is complicated, Miss Chin. Private equity involves complex relationships. Not everyone in our industry operates ethically. Having someone watching out for you isn't a small thing. The implication hung in the air. This wasn't just about business. It was about navigating a world where wealth and influence created their own rules. I need time to think, I said. Of course. He walked to a side table and picked up a business card. Simple black card, embossed with a single phone number. No name. When you decide, call this number. Only this number. I took the card. Our fingers brushed, and I felt something electric pass between us. His eyes registered it too. A flicker of recognition. Awareness. One more thing, he said as I moved toward the elevator. The Taejun acquisition. The documents you were reviewing when I interrupted you. What about it? The seller is hiding environmental liabilities. Section 4 of the due diligence report. The soil contamination study. Check the date it was filed against when the property was last assessed. There's a 2-month gap. Whatever they found in that gap isn't in your files. I stared at him. How do you know that? He smiled faintly. I told you. I see things others don't. I didn't sleep that night. I went back to the office at 3 a.m. with my security badge and pulled the Taejun files. Every page. Every document. I found the soil contamination study. And then I found what wasn't there. He was right. There were 2 assessments. One in March. One in May. We only had the May version. The March version showed contamination levels that would require millions in remediation. The seller had buried it. If we'd completed that acquisition, Hanseong Capital would have inherited a toxic liability that could have bankrupted us. I spent the weekend restructuring the deal. By Monday morning, I had a new proposal that forced the seller to disclose everything and cut the purchase price by 40%. My managing director praised it as brilliant due diligence. I didn't tell him where the insight came from. On Tuesday evening, I called the number on the black card. He answered on the first ring. "Miss Chen." "I'm in," I said simply. There was a pause. I could almost hear him smile. "Welcome to the real game." 3 months have passed since that night. To everyone at Hanseong Capital, I'm still director of operations. I attend the same meetings. I manage the same teams. I make the same decisions. But everything is different. Because now I understand what I'm really looking at. Minho never came back as a janitor. That phase of his research was complete. Instead, I receive information. Encrypted files appear in my secure email. Anonymous tips about deals we're considering. Intelligence about competitors that proves uncannily accurate. And sometimes, late at night when I'm working alone, my phone rings. Private number. "There's a situation developing with the Incheon project," his voice would say. Calm. Measured. Always in control. "Look at the third-party contractors. One of them has connections that will create problems for us." He's always right. I've stopped questioning how he knows things. I've accepted that his network, whatever it is, whoever they are, operates at a level I'm only beginning to understand. We meet sometimes. Never at Hanseong. Always in neutral spaces. Art gallery openings where we can talk quietly in front of paintings. Private dining rooms and restaurants where discretion is guaranteed. Once, memorably, at a late-night coffee shop in Itaewon where no one from our world would ever go. The conversations are never just about business. He asks about my life. My family back in California. What it's like being one of the few black women in Seoul's finance world. He listens in a way that most powerful men don't. Like my experience actually matters. And slowly, carefully, the dynamic between us shifts. What started as a professional arrangement becomes something more complicated. Something I don't have words for yet. The way he looks at me when he thinks I'm not paying attention. The way his voice softens when he says my name. The careful distance he maintains, like he's holding himself back from something. The moments when I catch myself thinking about him at inappropriate times. During board meetings. Late at night. When I should be focused on work. This is the part one didn't expect. The attraction. Not because of his power, though that's intoxicating in its own way. But because of how he wields it. With precision. With intelligence. Never carelessly. Never cruelly. He's shown me a version of authority I didn't know existed. Not domination. Not force. Control as choice. Power as responsibility. It happens on a Thursday evening, 4 months after our arrangement began. He calls, asks me to meet him at his apartment. "There's something you need to see." When I arrive, he's standing at those floor-to-ceiling windows again, silhouetted against the Seoul skyline. But his posture is different. Tense. "What's wrong?" I ask. He turns, and I see something in his expression I've never seen before. Concern. "One of our competitors has noticed you," he says quietly. "Your performance over the last few months. The deals you've restructured. The problems you've avoided. You're making people ask questions." "What kind of questions?" "About where you're getting your information." He moves closer. "About who's protecting you." The implications settle over me like cold water. Am I in danger? Not if you're careful. He reaches out, then stops himself, hand hovering in the space between us. "Maya, I need you to understand something. The work we do, the world I operate in, it's not without risk. I've tried to keep you separate from the more complicated aspects, but... But what? But you're too good at this. You're too visible now. And visibility creates vulnerability. For the first time since this began, I see the full weight of what I've agreed to. This isn't just corporate strategy. This is something deeper. Something with real consequences. Why are you telling me this?" I ask. "Because you deserve the choice. His voice is rough. You can step back. Return to being just another director. I'll make sure you're protected, but from a distance. Safe. Or you stay. And I teach you how to navigate this world properly. How to see what's coming. How to protect yourself. He finally closes the distance between us, and his hand comes up to my face, hovering just millimeters from my skin. Not touching. Asking permission. But if you stay, Maya, you need to understand something. What? I won't be able to maintain professional distance anymore. The air between us is electric. Charged. Everything I've been feeling for months reflected in his eyes. I've been trying, he continues, his voice low. Trying to keep this about business. About mentorship. About protecting someone I respect professionally. But that's not what this is anymore. Not for me. My breath catches. Minho. I see you. Not the director. Not the strategist. You. The woman who fires people she thinks are security risks even when it's politically dangerous. The woman who works until 3 a.m. to make sure every detail is right. The woman who's been navigating a foreign country alone and making it look effortless when I know it's not. His hand finally makes contact. Fingers gentle against my cheek. Warm. If you stay, he says quietly, this becomes personal. And I don't do anything halfway. This is where everything changes. I should step back. The smart thing, the professional thing, would be to create distance. To keep this arrangement purely strategic. But I don't want to. I'm staying, I say. His eyes search mine. You understand what that means? I understand that you're asking me to trust you with more than just career decisions. I lean into his touch. I understand that this world you operate in is complicated and probably dangerous. I understand that everything about this situation violates every rule about workplace relationships and power dynamics. And you're staying anyway? I'm staying because for the first time in my career, someone sees me as more than what I can produce. More than my performance metrics or my diversity quota status. My voice is steady. You see me, Minho. Actually see me. And that's rare. He closes the remaining space between us, and when he kisses me, it's nothing like I expected. Not aggressive. Not possessive. Reverent. Like I'm something precious he's been waiting for permission to touch. When we finally break apart, he rests his forehead against mine. This makes everything more complicated, he says. I know. If anyone finds out. They won't. I'm certain of this. Because you've spent 8 months proving you know how to be invisible when necessary. And I've spent 2 years proving I'm smarter than people give me credit for. He laughs softly. We're either going to be brilliant together or destroy each other. Let's aim for brilliant. Seoul is the same city I moved to 3 years ago, but I see it differently now. I understand that the calm surfaces hide complex currents. That power operates in layers most people never see. That the most influential people are often the ones no one knows to look for. At Hanseong Capital, I've been promoted to VP of Strategy. My track record over the past year has been flawless. Deals that could have failed became successes. Problems that could have buried us were solved before they materialized. People call me brilliant. Instinctive. Lucky. They don't know about the encrypted files. The late-night phone calls. The intelligence network I have access to through Minho. They don't know that Seoul's quiet, calculated mafia boss has made me untouchable because I'm his. And they definitely don't know that twice a week, I leave my corner office, drive to a penthouse in Seongsadong, and fall asleep in the arms of the man I once fired for being a security risk. The irony isn't lost on either of us. I've been thinking, Minho says one evening as we watch the city lights from his windows. About the next phase. Of what? Hanseong Capital. Your career. Us. He turns to face me. I want to bring you into the actual ownership structure. Make you a partner in Kong Holdings. Give you real equity, real power. I stare at him. That's a lot. I know. He smiles faintly. But you've earned it. And more than that, I trust you. With my business. With my secrets. With parts of myself I've never shown anyone. Minho. You don't have to answer now. Just think about it. He pulls me closer. Think about what we could build together. Not just professionally. Everything. And as I stand there in his arms, looking out over the city I've learned to navigate on my own terms, I realize something. I came to Seoul to prove myself. To succeed in a world that didn't always welcome people who looked like me. To be excellent in a culture that demanded excellence. What I found was something I never expected. Power that didn't need to advertise itself. Authority that operated through intelligence and strategy rather than force. And a man who saw me, really saw me, and decided I was worth protecting, worth teaching, worth loving. I fired the janitor because he was a security risk. Turns out, he was the biggest risk I'd ever take. And the best decision I ever made. Because in Seoul, power doesn't announce itself. It waits. It watches. And when it finds someone worth keeping, it holds on tight. In Seoul, power doesn't announce itself, and neither do we. But if you want to be the first to hear the next chapter of the story, you need to be part of the inner circle. Click that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Consider it your access card to the Penthouse. We have more stories coming about dangerous men, intelligent women, and the secrets they keep. Don't miss the next meeting. I'll see you there.